Good morning. Welcome to our Pastor's Corner teaching series. What this is about 7 to 10 minute quick Bible study for your own personal use, your family, or your small group. And right now we've been going through the book of James. So we're in James chapter 1, verse 19 to 21. James chapter 1, verse 19 to 21. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. Therefore, get rid of all moral filth and the evil that is so prevalent and humbly accept the word planted in you, which can save you. So with this section here, we come to a very key passage in the book of James. I think it's one that's very important for the entire book because actually you can structure the rest of this book based on these three simple ideas: be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. So you can actually categorize the rest of James's arguments into this. But let me just go back and give you some quick context again. James has been talking to his new Christian believers, and they're scattered across the world, and he's saying to them, you're going to go through testing and trials and challenges for your faith. And so the idea that we, in the midst of testing, trials, and challenges, we need to also be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. So while that is the context, these are also very important life application skills that we can employ in every facet of our life today. So because it says there, everyone should be, and it's an idea of a command there. Oftentimes I know we can say, well, I'm not a good listener, or I'm ill-tempered. I just have a problem with my temper. We can learn how to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. So what it takes for us is a great deal of humility and respect. Humility in ourselves and respect for the other person that we're dealing with. So you can actually use this in your marriages, use this in your relationships with your parents or with your kids, with a coworker, a colleague, a roommate, a friend, someone in your small group, anyone really. So if you think about it, have you ever gone to a small group gathering and as soon as we start sharing, someone starts sharing and complaining about their week, and sometimes in the back of your head you're just thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, I wish they would just stop complaining. Would they just shut up and just trust God and get it over with, right? Or sometimes if our kids ever come and complain to us, they feel a little bit stressed or anxious or worried, and we just kind of write them off and say, well, what do you have to be worried about? You're just a kid. You're supposed to just go and play, and why do you even bother trying to compare your stress to my stress? Or even think of how maybe an interaction with a spouse and how sometimes they are telling you over and over again that you're not doing something, and we call them nagging, right? I mean, all of these are the relationships we find ourselves in where these principles can be used and applied into those situations. So here we go with the first one. It's this: be quick to listen. I often say this, we have 2 ears, 1 mouth, right? So we should really be able to listen twice as much as we speak, but we are not good at this in our society. We are not very good at listening. We're good at hearing. We listen to music, we listen to the music played in elevators, to the malls, but we never really listen to those things, right? We're inundated with noise to the point that we can hear things, but we don't really listen. And so James is challenging us to be quick to listen carefully. What that means for us is that we need to listen to hear what is being said from a person and to understand why it's being said. To hear what's being said and to understand why it's being said. So oftentimes we are quick to respond, or our minds wander off somewhere else. And the idea is that we need to really pay attention, lean in, and really understand what it is a person is saying. Oftentimes too, in the midst of a conflict or an argument, we are quick to defend ourselves. We're quick to start thinking about what I'm going to say in response to what the person is saying to me. That way we're not really listening again. And so James is challenging us, really listen, lean in, listen, be discerning, be quick to listen. This requires humility on our part because we have to recognize that we're not always right. Our perspective is not always correct. Someone can disagree with us, but it doesn't mean they hate us, right? We need to really listen to what a person is saying. It requires us to treat the other person with dignity, with value and respect. We're trying to understand their heart. We're trying to understand their mind. We're trying to understand what it is they're trying to get across. And so when we genuinely try to listen, it requires clarity, it requires discernment. But oftentimes in the midst of an argument, we're quick to defend ourselves, we're quick to raise our voice, we're quick to give our opinions. So James is saying, listen, listen, listen. The second thing then is to be slow to speak. How do we respond? And oftentimes we're too quick to say what we want to say, to oftentimes say our opinion, give our thought, give our insight. And oftentimes, I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but for me, and sometimes I respond and I'm like, wait, that has nothing to do with what this person was looking for. Because I really wasn't listening and I was too busy thinking about what I needed to say. And so we need to learn to respond slowly and thoughtfully, to speak slowly. It's not about the pace of what we say. I'm a person who can talk really fast, but it's the idea that how I respond, and am I responding with grace and mercy and humility to what this person is saying. So oftentimes too, I don't think this is any more limited anymore to just the words that come out of our mouth. We live in an age where we can instantly message someone, right? And so we can post something quickly, we can respond to a text quickly. And I'm saying with this, we can apply it to that as well. Be slow to respond to those things. Sometimes people post things that we disagree with and we're quick to respond. Be slow to speak, slow it back down. Oftentimes when we're in the midst of this, we make excuses. We want to excuse our behavior or give our thoughts or give our opinion. And it says again, just to remind us, be slow to speak. Proverbs 18:2 says it this way: fools find no pleasure in understanding, but delight in airing their own opinions. Fools find no pleasure in understanding, but delight in airing our own opinions. This is the idea that if we talk without listening, we're just really operating like a fool. So what do we do when we speak? It's a good time to ask clarifying questions. It's a good time to understand, do I really understand what you're saying? Or can you repeat what you're saying? Or what do you mean by that? And after all, it's when we share our thoughts, we're supposed to share it with gentleness and supposed to share it with love. The idea of being slow to speak isn't an excuse not to say anything either. Oftentimes we're worried that if we don't say something quickly or say something at all, then when something is wrong or incorrect, we don't have the opportunity to correct it. No, it's not that as well. It's the idea of just think thoughtfully, think clearly, and even with what we're responding with, is it even clear to the person that we're speaking to as well? The last one then is the idea of being slow to become angry or slow to wrath in some versions of your Bible. Why? Well, the idea is sometimes we get offended too easily today, right? We get offended too easily with what our spouse says or what someone says to us online or what someone says to us in person. And so the idea is that we need to really dial that back and just be slow to become angry. We don't need to be offended if someone disagrees. We don't need to be offended if someone doesn't agree with us or corrects us. Don't focus always on how someone is saying something. Focus on the details of why they're saying and what they're saying. Don't focus on the attitude behind it so much. That attitude sometimes gets us into trouble because if your coworker responds to you, says something to you first in a very angry tone, it's your second tone, the one that can diffuse a situation or make a situation worse. So don't respond to a person in anger. Be slow to get angry. Now here's the thing. Anger in itself is not a sin. Anger in itself is not a problem. In fact, God does get angry, but God gets angry, but he doesn't sin because God cares about certain things passionately, right? He hates sin. He gets angry about sin. He gets angry about things like injustice. And oftentimes we make the same excuse. We kind of say our anger is a holy anger or a righteous anger. Probably 99% of the time it's not. Most of the time our anger comes from our own sin condition, and we respond in a way that's too defensive or we respond in a way that is out of that context. But even so, just remember how God responds. God always responds with grace and mercy, with grace and mercy. So even in our times of anger, we can also still respond to a person in grace and with mercy. And so God's timing is important in all these things. Be quick to listen. God listens quickly. We're called to listen quickly. It's a timing piece. And then be slow to speak and be slow to become angry. We have to trust in God's timing for these things. So what do we do from here on in? Well, consider these instructions of James. I want us to consider it. Are we really living in a way where we are quick to listen? Only you can really answer that. Just think through how you deal with your kids or your spouse or a coworker or a friend. Are you really listening when someone is speaking to you? And then in return, when you speak, are you actually addressing what this person's saying, or are you just thinking of your own things all the time and just wanting to air your own ideas and your own opinions? So just really reflect on these two things. Am I quick to listen? Am I slow to speak? And then the third, some of us maybe we're challenged with our anger. Are we slow to get angry? Sometimes we make excuses that our anger is simply someone else's fault or God's righteous anger, but it's really not. Sometimes it's really just us not being able to handle what's being said to us. So I want us to just reflect on that. So what is our attitude? And as you move forward from here this week, think about it. Can I be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry? That's it for this week on Pastor's Corner. Tune in next time as we continue looking through the book of James.